welcome to everyone who's joined us tonight for this Glaucoma UK webinar titled Living Well with Glaucoma. My name is Philippa Mason and I'm the Development Manager for Scotland for Glaucoma UK. Now, I know it's a bit late in the month, but I just wanted to wish you all a very, very happy new year. It's the first time I've seen you since 2021, and let's hope that this year brings us a bit more hope and health and love and happiness. Today, I'm very, very happy to be joined by the wonderful Jan Redman. Jan is a Glaucoma UK member and supporter, and Jan has very kindly offered to speak to us today about how she lives well with glaucoma. Jan has helped glaucoma out a few times over the years by volunteering to tell her story. By speaking about her experiences, she's helped many people on their own glaucoma journey, and we really appreciate her giving up her time tonight. We were also meant to be joined today by our glaucoma helpline manager, Helen Doe, but unfortunately she's poorly tonight, so she won't be with us. Now, Helen is our helpline guru and usually is an absolute wealth of knowledge about everything helpline related. Hopefully, I will be able to address a lot of the queries that come up tonight. But if there's anything that I'm not sure about, I'm not going to make it up. I'm not going to pretend I know. I will have to say I'm not sure, and we have to check it out with our helpline. Now, the best way to do that is to phone our helpline or to drop them an email. And then that way you can get the best one-to-one support and advice, but I'll help as much as I can tonight. Now, I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about the format of today's talk, then the technical side of Zoom and who Glaucoma UK are. So Glaucoma UK do different types of sessions. The format of today's session is slightly different from the one that we run 2 weeks ago. If you were there, you'll know that it was a kind of lecture type format where Gus talked to us about normal tension glaucoma. These tend to be, as I said, more lecture, more informative, a bit more formal. We also have sessions that are a bit more about experiences and self-care. And today's session definitely falls into the latter camp. So after I stop yapping, the format is I'm going to have a chat with Jan about her experiences, and then I want to bring your thoughts, feelings and ideas into the session. So to make this work, as well as putting the standard questions into the Q&A, we want to hear from you. We want to find out what you found challenging about living with glaucoma. We want to know these emotional challenges, the physical challenges, and the really important bit, how either you've overcome them, how you're working to overcome them, or whether you need support to overcome them. And hopefully we can help with that. For example, these challenges could be in relation to your medication and your eye drops. Perhaps they're emotional challenges that you're overcoming. Any hints and tips that you might have for helping others. There's a whole lot of us here today. You know, it's things that you can suggest today may help somebody else in a similar situation. Now, don't worry about your spellings and grammar when you're talking to us through the Q&A box tonight. It's anonymous. So when I read out what people are saying, I'm not going to mention your name. I'm going to say, you know, we've had some, lots of people are asking about this or asking about that. But it's really, really useful for me to know what your concerns are. What are the things that you want advice about? What are the things that are relevant to you? And there's no such thing as a stupid question. You know, even if you think to yourself, oh, I feel a bit embarrassed about asking it, ask it, you know, because the only stupid question is the one that we didn't ask. That's that bit covered. Now I'm just going to go on to talk about some of the technicals of how this Zoom group will work. We cannot hear or see audience members, but you should be able to see and hear Jan and myself. We're also being streamed live on Facebook tonight. And if you're watching there, you can also participate by putting in your questions, your ideas, your thoughts into the Facebook feed, and they will be put through to us here. Now we're going to, as normal, launch 2 short polls during this webinar. The first one should be coming up now. So Mel, if you're able to launch that first poll for me, that's absolutely fantastic. We're going to ask this question at the beginning and at the end of the session. And this helps us get a good idea about how much you feel you already know about living well with glaucoma. And then hopefully at the end, that will have increased. That's wonderful. This is interactive. You can see you all pressing your buttons as we speak. That's absolutely fantastic. I'll leave that up for about another 20 seconds and then Mel, you can take that down. Now, if you're having any technical difficulties tonight, obviously I can't come around and check everybody individually, but a few of the easy things you can do. The first one is to come out of the Zoom webinar and go back in again. That's the first thing. That's done, Mel. I think you can take that down now. That would be fab. The second thing to try is just to make sure your Wi-Fi connection is okay. And finally, you can try turning off your device and turn it back on again. Fingers crossed one of these things will work. But don't panic. If none of these things work, there are other things you can try. As I said, we are being streamed live on Facebook tonight. So if you've got access to Facebook, and then you cut out during the session, you can go into the Facebook page, to the Glaucoma UK page, and we'll be being streamed there. And if that doesn't work either, or you have to leave halfway through, you can catch up with our videos when they're put on our YouTube channel. This is usually a week or so before they go up, but it will allow you to catch up. So if you would like to ask a question, put a comment, a thought, a suggestion up tonight, the way to do that is to wiggle your mouse or touch your screen and you will see a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So if you have any questions for Jan or myself tonight, you can type them in here. You can ask the questions whenever you want. Don't wait for the end. If you've got something pressing that you really want us to kind of discuss or look at suggestions for tonight, feel free to put it in as early as possible. Even if you don't want to put any questions or anything up, you can also just keep an eye on the Q&A channel. That way, when things come in that you like, you can press like next to it and it will pop up at the top of my list. Now, don't use the chat button as much. I'm just going to very quickly check there. Don't use the chat box as much if possible, because we tend to try to focus everything into the Q&A box. It makes it a lot more easy to find out what's coming in and what I need to read. We tend to just leave the chat box clear for technical issues. I've activated the closed captioning tonight, so you'll see the automatic subtitling appearing at the bottom of the screen. It does find medical vocab difficult, so I apologise if it's not as accurate as we'd like it to be, but hopefully it's better than not having anything at all. But we do need to work on that, so apologies for that. Now, just a wee bit about us before we get started. I'm sure a lot of you already know this, but to any newcomers tonight, Glaucoma UK is the UK's only glaucoma-specific charity in the UK, and we work in 3 main areas to prevent glaucoma sight loss. Firstly, we campaign to raise awareness of the disease. We want people to know what glaucoma is and the importance of getting their eyes tested. The earlier glaucoma is diagnosed, the less likely people are to experience sight loss. Secondly, we provide support and advice to people with glaucoma and those who care for them. We have information leaflets, a helpline, a buddy service, and a patient forum. And we also provide training and advice to professionals who look after people with glaucoma. All of our services are free to access. Finally, we fund research into the diagnosis, treatment, care, and prevention of glaucoma. Now, we haven't got a huge amount of money, we're a small charity, but we often provide initial funding for seed research that gets early stage research going. Okay, that's enough of talking about this for now. I'm going to stop sharing these slides for now. Okay, I think that's there. I'm just checking on my list to make sure Everything's going, that's perfect as is. And I would like to introduce Jan to our conversation tonight. Hello, Jan. Thank you so much for joining us. We can hear you. We can hear you loud and clear. That's wonderful that that's all working. It's always a bit of a worry, isn't it, with the technical stuff to start with. So, Jan, I'm just going to ask you a few questions as it is, but just to have a kind of informal conversation. So maybe you could start by telling us a bit about your glaucoma story, and perhaps when you were diagnosed and what's happened since then.
Yes, back in 2011, I went to see the optician because I've got family history of glaucoma, and I remember he said that I had very slightly raised pressures, and he thought it was just a bit of ocular hypertension, but that he would send a letter to the GP and that would go to the hospital. And I went to the hospital and they said there, oh, well, you've just got thick corneas and we'll just keep an eye on it, which they did for a few years. I had to chase them up a bit because things went astray a little bit. But then in 2015, when I saw the optician again at my yearly checkup, they said I had unreliable fields of vision on the field of vision test. So then they thought, yes, this might be glaucoma because of the family history as well. So the pressures were still about 23, 24, not sky high, but I started treatment, and then they noticed I had a lot of repeated disc hemorrhages, which worried me. And so in 2017, they did some laser, the first lot of laser, but I had side effects. I started getting side effects with the eye drops, or they were ineffective. So I tried lots of different ones. And then I had the second lot of laser. That only really seemed to be effective like the first one for about 6 months. And then coming up to 2020, during COVID, I had some loss of vision in my right eye. And I discovered what it was really just by covering over one eye. And then I realized there was a little sort of hazy bit in the other eye, and which was obviously a bit worrying. And I phoned up the hospital and I spoke to the medical secretary, and she said, well, we're terribly busy at the moment, and I'm sure they were. And I said, well, do you think you could fit me in some time? But nothing happened. So I phoned again 2 weeks later, and I got a different secretary, and she said, I'll put you in straight away. So I got in, and the consultant then said, you probably need a trabeculectomy because you don't respond to the drops, or you have sore eyes, or you have some other side effects. And then fairly soon, I think only about 4-6 weeks later, he did the first Presaflow micro shunt. And so that was December 20. And the pressures came right down to between 8 and 11. That was under local anaesthetic, and it was really very good, no problem. I found it wasn't really, it was vaguely uncomfortable, but no more than that. And then the second one was in my good eye, not the one with a slight loss of vision. And that was a little bit more worrying because I thought, gosh, this is my good eye. There's nothing seems to be wrong with it. But anyway, it seemed to be successful. That was March 21 last year. And then the pressures stayed about 12, 13, 14, and he seemed to be happy with that. And until November last year, when I had a very scratchy eye, not so much, it was different to dry eyes, it was just a scratcher. And that were the sutures that were loose and rubbing, scratching. So I had those removed, and that was wonderful. That was just before Christmas. So now all I take is Thiolose Duo, the preservative-free individual units, and I take a higher back, all just lubricants. And the pressures have sort of still 13, 14.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm to be seen in 6 months. So that's where I am, up to date.
Wow, Jan, that sounds like you've had a bit of a roller coaster, really. You know, you've had you've been through many different processes and many interventions and scares, I imagine. So I was just kind of wondering if you could kind of talk us through some of the thoughts, the feelings and the emotions maybe that you were feeling at different stages of those journey of your glaucoma.
Yeah, well, to begin with, I think obviously I was worried, like most people, and I found, even though my mother and my sister both had glaucoma, my mother in fact had 2 trabeculectomies and laser, but that was a long time ago, and I didn't really remember much about it. It's not the same if it's not you, obviously, you know. So I wanted to find out as much as I could, but I found that well, there wasn't the Health Unlocked forum then. You know, it hadn't started back then.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't an awful lot. I remember seeing the Glaucoma UK leaflets, and I did pick up one of those, and that was a real lifeline. That was in the hospital. But I found at the time was so limited with the doctors, and they were I always saw a different one. There was very little continuity. That for me was a problem because I wanted to know as much as I could. So I joined the Glaucoma UK, and I was delighted when I started getting the Insight magazines, and because they explain an awful lot, and also I was able to download or get all the glaucoma leaflets. So that also was a great help.
And did you find then, as just a few things really, just the Health Unlocked forum that you're talking about, that's one of the free services that we offer here, and it basically enables you to go to our Health Unlocked Glaucoma UK page, and you can join there, and it works as a forum, so you can put in posts, can't you, and you can reply to other people's posts.
Yes.
And you can have your own username, so you can be anonymous, really, can't you? You can maybe know someone, and that's quite good for reassurance, you know, trying to find someone who's maybe had a process or a procedure or has had the same difficulty or the same side effect, and seeing what they say. So yes, a nice community on there, isn't it?
It is very, very helpful. I've learned a lot from that.
You see, would you say for yourself, Jan, that I suppose what you're saying is kind of you needed information, you wanted access to information, and that maybe helped you feel a bit more in control of things, or?
Oh, I just felt I wanted to, I feel it's our responsibility, or it was my responsibility, to be in control of my health as much as possible and to do as much as I can so that, you know, I don't have problems with the glaucoma. And I found it very frustrating that even though I was trying to comply with everything, trying to take all the drops and do everything, not stand on my head or blow a trumpet or anything like that, you know, all the things they tell. But I was still having these hemorrhages. The pressures weren't obviously low enough for me. And that's, I think, when they said, oh, this is probably normal tension glaucoma. And I wanted to just ask, what can I do? And I think too, they felt that I perhaps wasn't taking the drops properly, and I wasn't doing the punctal occlusion where you press, you know, after you've taken the drop. I felt questioned that I wanted to say, well, I do, you know, I really do try, and what else can I do? So that's why the Health Unlocked and the helpline and the leaflets at least helped me so that I could perhaps ask the right questions
Absolutely. And get reassurance as well, you know, that the things that you were doing were the right things to do, that you were doing everything you could. I just wanted, you mentioned punctual occlusion, which is something that's really, really important. If anybody out there is currently taking eye drop medication at all, what we always suggest is to try to stop any side effects by the drops going down the tear duct, down the back of the throat and into the stomach. We would always suggest people do punctual occlusion. It also really, really helps keep the topical eye drop in the area that it needs to work in the eye. And I'm very quickly going to demonstrate, Jan, I promise I'll come back, but you just take a clean finger, and after you have done your eye drop, you place it very gently on the tear duct with the eye closed, and you keep it there for approximately, how long do you do it for, Jan?
Well, at the moment, I'm not using any
oh, yes,
apart from the lubricant, but normally I would do it for 3 minutes. I was told by the consultant 2 minutes wasn't long enough, so I...
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, we would say, you know, a minute, 2 minutes, wonderful. If you can just keep that, and it just keeps the drop in the eye where it's meant to be, and it actually then does its job. And as I said, it also helps with some of those nasty side effects, like things like stomach ache. Sometimes if people feel like it's going down the back of the throat, it also doesn't taste very nice, does it?
Yes. Yes, you know, then if you've done it wrong, or if you haven't done it enough, if I start feeling it down there in the nose, or tasting it even,
yes, that's right, the taste.
I know it's not long enough.
So that kind of feeling of wanting more information, and you know, you've mentioned this before about how, first of all, not seeing the same consultant every time, also appointments being quite short. So you're not always able to be able to go in and ask all the questions that we want to ask.
No. Or you get, or a virtual clinic. That the last one I went to was much better. There was a nurse there, and I could ask more questions. But normally, with I've had a few virtual clinics, and I'm so disappointed because I've got this list of questions, and the poor things, they just don't know.
No, of course.
They're just there to do the field of vision and the pressures, and then it goes to the consultant. But that can take weeks and weeks to come back, and you feel, well, you want to know. But I think because I understand more, having, you know, just time really to find out, and learning, as I say, from Health Unlocked, that you know, with time, once you understand a little bit, or once I understand a little bit more, it helps enormously, because then I can ask the right questions. And then when he said, okay, in fact, to begin with, he said trabeculectomy, I would have that. But he changed it just a week before the operation and says, well, actually, I like to do the PreserFlow microshunt. And it was the first one he'd ever done, in fact, which, but he was very, very good and very careful. And in fact, I found it quite interesting. Not at all, I worried about it an awful lot, but the actual, everybody was so kind and helpful.
And did it help that you felt like, did he explain much before you had the shunt? Did he explain what he was going to do and, you know, how it was going to work or anything like that?
A little bit. There wasn't, I don't think he had a leaflet for that, but I found some on the internet. I found some stuff on the internet because I think it was quite new, and it had changed its name too. That was the other thing that threw me. It was called something else before. I don't know what it was called. Anyway, so the fact that I knew, I'd read a bit about trabeculectomy and stents, and that helped, because I was able then to think, oh, right, you know, do I want this or don't I want it? Because you know what your choices are. Whereas if you don't know much, you don't know, you know, what to say.
You don't know what you don't know. I totally agree. And I think one of the things I remember when I first started working in this area and I started looking at words like trabeculectomy, you know, and it took me probably about 4 months to be able to say the word trabeculectomy properly, and it took me ages. And so these things can be quite intimidating. You know, the kind of consultants will just say, you know, oh, this is what we're going to do. I would be thinking, actually, I can't even remember what you told me I'm having, you know, with the medical terminology. It's very difficult. I think one of the things maybe both of us would probably agree with is to get people to write down, you know, if there's things being talked about, to be able to say, can you write that down for me, please? What is it that I'm having? Right, okay. So you can actually take it away, because it's such a shock often when you've told. I mean, I'm interested, Jan, you were saying one of the things is obviously you kind of went through the initial bit and then your pressures weren't going down enough. So they said, oh, you're going to have some more interventions. I mean, how did you feel when you found out that, you know, the initial stuff wasn't working and you were going to have?
Well, I think I felt, yes, I felt very worried, because I felt, what is it I'm doing wrong? How can I change this? How can I, and I started thinking about the bed, and I put more pillows under the mattress, and everything I did didn't seem to make any difference. But I also, I mean, I always try and eat healthily, but I thought more about that. And there's been quite a bit on Health Unlocked about it. Thought about what I was drinking. Was I drinking too much tea? Was I drinking too much coffee? You know, all those things. I mean, I'm sure probably a lot of things help, probably not one thing. But what I did do as well was put things in a book. And then I had my little book to take with me, because all the chopping and changing, they actually put me back on the same drops that I was having problems with. And I said, well, I think I've had those, but I didn't have anything to show for it. Whereas now I always take my book with me, and that is such a great help, because it's got my questions and their answers, and the pressures, and whether the field of vision was good, bad, or the same, or whatever. So, and I believe now Glaucoma UK actually supply books, don't you?
We do. We have a glaucoma monitoring booklet that you can get for free off of our website. So if you guys think that would be useful, something that you'll be able to use, that's something that we can provide. You're absolutely right. I think, you know, we often think with medical, in the medical professions, they've got a note of everything. They know what they're doing. You know, they have it all written down. But it's so important if you can keep a note of, especially with something like glaucoma, which is a lifelong chronic condition. This isn't going to be just done and dusted within a year. So it's a really good idea, and it's very empowering to write down what's happening, what's being said, what the important notes are, so you feel in control of your own medical information.
Yes, I think that's very, very important. Certainly helped me. And I said just time, I think, helped me, because you gradually get a little bit from there and a little bit from there. Oh, and the other thing was the optician. I found out there was a system in Somerset with a scheme called the ACES scheme.
Right.
Which got a leaflet here. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you can see that, but it stands for Acute Community Eye Care Service, and that it is in certain counties in England, but I'm not sure which ones. But I think everybody should be asking for it. Why should we have it in Somerset if other people haven't got? Because these opticians are specially trained in glaucoma. And in fact, the optician that I see, he also goes to the hospital. He works in Bristol and he works at other hospitals, so that he knows exactly, you know, he keeps up to date. He's always very interested if I bring him any research. And I can just phone him up if I'm worried. I can just ask him something, or he'll say, come in, and you can see him free with the ACES scheme. If you know, obviously if you've got a problem, but that's been a real lifeline too. I was so lucky to find out about that.
Absolutely, and I think there's kind of a culture at the moment of well, there's a change in that ophthalmology services more generally are going to be, because there's so many ophthalmology patients now, it's the biggest and most busiest outpatient department in the UK. So what they're tending to do now is looking at how we can manage glaucoma patients more effectively. This is happening across the UK in different ways, in different CCGs or health boards, depending on what part of the UK you live in. But it will mean that there are going to be more glaucoma professionals based in the community. There will be more based at optoms. You know, people are going to have to increase their knowledge. So I'm in Scotland, and there's a scheme happening where we're getting these glaucoma accredited optometrists. So it's interesting. It's a similar scheme to what you have there, people who are specialists. So it will be happening across the UK. It's just, it will be in various different ways. I've got a couple of questions here, Jan, just so we don't kind of lose track. Just a quick one. Someone's saying here, what was your actual type of glaucoma that you've got, Jan? I think you mentioned, was it normal tension glaucoma?
Well, yes, it was. To begin with, though, I did have very slightly raised pressures. It was 23, I think 23, 24 was the highest. And then it came down sort of 15, 16, 18, but I still seem to get the retinal hemorrhages. So then he said, oh, I think you probably got normal tension. Yes.
But it's an open angle normal tension.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes. Open angle.
Yeah, that's okay. No, that's okay. And I've got something here. Someone's written something really interesting. They've said, this has come through on Facebook. Some patients are asking if they can record their appointments on their mobile when they go to the doctor to make it more useful for them to listen back. What I would say in this particular situation is I think this is a great idea. I can't see why doctors would have a problem with this at all, but obviously ask when you go into your appointment. Just ask and say, listen, just so I can remember these things, is it okay if I record what we're saying? The other way of doing it, as I said, is to either bring someone along. I know it's easier said than done, that can also help listen while we're digesting information, or ask consultants to write things down. And I think it's that thing, isn't it? They're talking. I've been there and we're nodding, you know, and they're talking and I'm nodding and I'm thinking, trying to take this in. And what's that they just said? You know, you don't want to say, wait, what? You know, can you clarify? Sorry, what was that? Can you just tell me that again? But don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. It's your health, your eyes. If you need them to stop, slow down, go through it again. I don't really understand, doctor. What was that? So what have I got? Then you can ask them to do that. And I've got another person here who said, hi, I've had a laser, had the drops, and now I've got an eye stent, now scheduled for a trabeculectomy. So, you know, it's similar kind of lots of different kind of progression things. Can I ask, were you offered the micro shunt instead of the trabeculectomy?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And it said, and with the shunt, do you have a bleb on the top part of
Yes, you do. Yes. It's very similar, I think. It is very similar. Why I had, he suggested it, he said, well, if you were my mother, and I could have been, then I would advise her to have it. I think partly because it was COVID and it's less invasive, the operation. Right. So I think it was something to do. He didn't say that, but I suspected that because at that time, in December 20, there was no COVID vaccine. So, you know, I suppose you had to be extra careful.
Absolutely. I mean, they say, you know, with trabeculectomies, they are surgeries. And although they're still seen as a gold standard, an extremely effective way of being able to bring pressures down, they are surgeries. And there are other interventions like shunts, etc., that can be used. You're absolutely right, which are perhaps less risky in terms of infection or for the amount of time that you're going to be in hospital. So, but also not all different doctors in different areas may offer different treatments. That's kind of, I hate to say it's a postcode lottery, but it kind of depends what specialism is of a consultant and what's being offered in that area. It doesn't mean that there's substandard. Obviously, our NHS standards are going to be of a way, but there are some areas that surgeons are more prolific in. MIGS, for example, the minimally invasive glaucoma surgeries. Yeah, it is a bit of a postcode lottery, but yeah, that's very interesting though, that, you know, it does that. And yes, exactly, that probably sounds, you know, the reasons why you had the shunt rather than, I'm doing this reading at the same time. I've just, this is amazing. People are sending in some interesting stuff. It says, and people are writing, you know, what pressure is considered too low. But one of the things that we talk about, pressure is not normal. There isn't a one single pressure, normal pressure. Your pressure will depend on you and your consultant. So you can't compare pressures basically. And there is such a thing as your pressure going too low after surgery. It's very, very rare occurrence that happens. But you know, I remember somebody saying to me once, I was sitting in an ophthalmology eye clinic waiting room, and they were saying, what's your pressure? Oh, mine's 10. What's yours? Oh, it's 18. You can't compare like with like, you know, it very much depends on the individual. That's wonderful. Right. Okay. I'll carry on with my questions. I'm getting carried away here. So you've talked about kind of some of the kind of feelings that you had. Moving on, what would you say are the kind of main challenges since you've had your diagnosis and of the treatments? And how have these kind of impacted you, Jan?
I think one of the main things was when I thought, well, certainly during the surgery as well, obviously I couldn't drive. And I thought, will I get my confidence back? So it was lack of confidence and maybe too after the surgeries, lack of confidence to, I live out in the countryside, to walk on very rough ground. I had to be really careful and slow to begin with, and I thought, will I be able to do all the things I love? I love gardening, but in fact, I found there are ways around it, like everything really, isn't there? You just find, I think you have to accept and then adapt. And I found all sorts of little things that would help. For instance, gardening. I've got a little gardening stool, and I could use that even after the surgery. I mean, I obviously had to be very, very careful. I didn't do too much, but I could do just a little bit after the surgery, and then gradually increase and do a little bit more. And now I'm just more careful. I wear goggles when I'm doing pruning, or if I'm doing anything, much more than I would have done before, because I think it makes you just much more aware of your eyes.
Definitely.
And
I was going to say, one of the things you said, I just caught my ears when you said it. You said it's about when you get the infant, you first find out, and then you have to accept. Yeah. And then you can work on how we move forward. And you've been talking about needing knowledge, needing information, needing to understand the options, what's happening to you, and the fact that that then leads to perhaps being able to move forward. I think it's very interesting. There's almost those stages with these types of long-term chronic.
Yes. Yes. And I do remember feeling down sometimes and thinking, oh, what can I do about that? What am I going to do? And especially when I've been most frustrated, it's when I couldn't get through, or if there was once or twice when I couldn't get the right eye drops, or I couldn't get the eye drops. I mean, I never ran out completely, but there was a shortage, a sort of world shortage. And those sort of things, you feel it's out of your control, and it's a bit of a battle then. But I think once you know that can happen, you find out which pharmacy you might be able to go to. I mean, the pharmacies I found very, very helpful. And eye drops too, I found I actually was dispensed the wrong eye drops, something I was allergic to, only because they were so similar. You couldn't blame the pharmacy. So I always look at the bottles. I take them out of the packaging when I'm in the pharmacy and make sure I've got the right ones.
Yes. Because
it's so easy when they're sometimes the same colours. And especially, of course, if your sight isn't, 100%.
That's right. They all look so similar, don't they, Jan? They all look so similar. The little white bottles.
Yes.
It's extremely difficult. And that's an amazing tip. So what have you done there, Jan?
Well, I've put little bits of tape, insulating tape, on the tops, so that you can, once you've established which is which, obviously, you can then glance, you're right, that you're not going to pick up the wrong one, especially I find at night, at bedtime, when you're putting them in. So that's been very useful.
That's a great tip as well. I mean, you've had a couple there, going when you're actually in the pharmacist, picking them up, checking your medication. I mean, often we have people who come through to the helpline and they say, I was on one medication and now they've changed it. I'm on something different. Now, it could be that you've gone from a branded to a generic. So it's the same drug, but it's perhaps a different composition. Now, perhaps that bottle's not as easy to squeeze. Perhaps when you do squeeze it, loads of drops come out and you find it really, really difficult to work with. So although you're getting the same medication, the actual bottle is not going to suit you. So absolutely, if you find things like that, it's never the end of it. Things can be done. So you can ask for the branded. You can say, right, no, I have that branded before. I need the branded this time. And then when you're in the pharmacy, you open it up and you can check, can't you, that it's the same thing, the same one. And also, I think that's a great idea about marking your bottles there. So, even when you're tired, even when you're exhausted, even when the light's not good necessarily in a room, you'll know which ones. But I'm going to just so I don't get lost in these. There was one person here who said, could we have the optician's leaflet title again, Jan, for where you live? Is that ACES, wasn't it?
Yes, this is not the optician I go to. It's not his leaflet, but it's one for Somerset. It's it's ACES, and acute community eye care services, but it's not called that all over.
That's right.
England, you know, various other. I think there's somewhere in the southeast that does it as well. I just thought everybody did it all over England. It was only somebody said, well, no, actually, you're lucky. You know?
Absolutely. But there are similar services similar services are available elsewhere. But yeah, not everywhere, but there should be. And as I said, now there's definitely a move to having more community-based services. So yes, but I'm so glad you recommend them, because they're obviously, you know, been really helpful for those questions. Let me just answer that one. That's absolutely wonderful. Let me just see what else has come in before we go on to the next one here. I've got someone here said, I had a Zen implant in my right eye. The right eye with better vision, which brought the pressure down to about 8 a year ago. Then it scarred over and the pressure raised right up again. A needling op cleared this recently, and I'm attending reviews to monitor. The most challenging I find is emotional, as vision loss of any kind is irreversible with glaucoma. And you get something that you're not very familiar with, and it's concerning. Jan, how do you deal with that kind of fear, the fear of the emotional? You know, a lot of people, when they phone us initially, they say, I'm worried, you know, I'm going to lose my sight. It's inevitable. You know, I mean, we know now, and I think this is very important for me to say just before I pass over, Jan, that with early diagnosis of glaucoma, with regular monitoring and the right treatment, the chances of losing your usable sight are very, very low these days. Okay, guys. So, you know, do what the doctor tells you to do. Make sure you go to your monitoring, get it nice and early. And your chances of keeping usable sight for life are much, much higher. So Jan, sorry, the question was to you, you know, the emotional feelings really of.
Yes. I think there again, knowing, understanding helps me enormously, but also I think there again you have to just accept it, because and realize. Well, I realized that my mother didn't die until she was 91. She had it for about 40 or 50 years, and she always had sight. It wasn't wonderful. So that the chances, as you say, the chances of actually losing your sight, you might lose a little bit of it, but I think I've adapted to that, so that I now, I suppose the brain adapts to it as well. Yeah. And I can see, I know what is normal for me now. I know that if it's a little bit fuzzy, well, that's just me. And I think you just have to accept it, because otherwise you can worry yourself silly and life's going by. And as long as you, as you say, do all the right things. In fact, only 5% of people with glaucoma will ever need surgery. So we're quite a small percentage. I think that was the Glaucoma UK website. I think I got that from.
Well done, Jan. That's right. Thank you. You're absolutely right. And I think this is it. I think there's an initial thing that people think that's it. That's the end for me. And I think in the past, you know, people used to call glaucoma the silent stealer of sight. It used to be like, you know, that's it now, you're going to go blind. But that isn't the case anymore. And as you said, only 5% of people even need surgery. So absolutely right. You know, I think we've got to get the message out there as part of a charity as well, to tell people, listen, this isn't how it used to be. You know, there's lots of things we can do. Just kind of, I'm going to move on to the next question. I've got so many lovely comments coming in as well. I want to cover those as well. But I was just wondering, Jan, can you tell us about how you've kind of managed these challenges to help you continue living well with glaucoma? So what kind of changes and aids and adaptations or tips have you got for people that might help them?
Well, one of the things I've had for about, I don't know, probably 20 years, because I used to get blepharitis, and I know a lot of people with glaucoma can get blepharitis, or even dry eyes. I think it helps dry eyes, and that is one of these little, I'll hold it up so you can, packs you put in the microwave. And you put it on, I usually put it on at night for about 10 minutes. And that, just get it hot enough. It lasts, it's lasted really well. And then just wipe yes, it's definitely for dry eyes. I remember somebody recommended it for that. Just wipe afterwards your lashes, and I find it so important that I do it every night if I possibly can. So that's one thing. I think they're quite well known, you know, they're widely available, these packs.
That's wonderful. Do you use lubricating drops in your eye, Jan? Someone's actually written here, they've asked, you know, what do you do? Do you suffer from dry eye, Jan? Yes. Have you got any tips? So yes, the eye bag, that's great. So that helps, doesn't it? What other tips for dry eye would you?
Dry eyes. Well, the Thelos Duo, for me, is an excellent one. It seems to last. And the other thing I find, if I go outside, we've got a very dry house, unfortunately, which is good for some things, but not for dry eyes. And I'm much worse in the winter. I'm almost fine in the summer. And so I use more drops in the winter, and I try and go out every day, and that does make a difference. I suppose it's far more humid. So I think the humidity does help. And oh yeah, the shower in the morning. I'm always fine until my worst time is sort of 4 o'clock, or if I'm on the internet a lot. So I tend to put the drops in before I go on the internet.
One of the things we say is, well, keep hydrated, drink lots of water as well. We've got the 20-20-20 rule as well about, you know, not looking at a screen for longer than 20 minutes, making sure you're doing plenty of blinking, you know, looking away, not staring. I mean, so much of it's screen orientated these days, doesn't it? So much of our work and our life. So taking those regular breaks. And I also find as well, wearing sunglasses. I know people think I'm just being really cool if I'm out and about in my sunglasses, but I wear them for a lot of the year now. If it's wind, lots of things kind of cause my eyes to really, really go. So I just keep my sunglasses off, to keep the glare off, and to go easy on them, really.
Not everybody gets on very well. I don't get on very well with sunglasses. I just find it, my mum was the same, I know. And they're not like, you know, I need them lighter. I've got some, I think that was skiing ones or something. They're not too bad, but normally I wear something like that. I feel like a tennis player.
It looks great, Jan.
And they cost about £4, and they are certainly after surgery, when I think you really feel the glare, they're well worth having, you know, if you do have that problem. Otherwise, a hat, of course.
Yes.
And with surgery too, because you're not allowed to bend afterwards for it's about 6 weeks or so. So these litter pickers, very, very useful. So otherwise, it's so frustrating. You keep dropping things. Well, I keep dropping things.
I just wish I could pick up my kids with those, Jan. It would be great.
Yes.
But that's a great thing to have around, isn't it? It means you're not, you know, you're not thinking, and it's so busy. Life is so busy. You start feeling better, don't you, a couple of weeks later? And so you're just taking for granted that bending. So if it's something there, a prop to help you, I think that's wonderful.
You feel in control then. Oh, I feel in control if I've got all these things. This is what I wear when I have my eye sutures and everything, you know, immediately after the operation in the shower, because I adapted it, but really I bought it was for a child, so it was a much smaller hole in the middle, so I made it bigger for me. and you can pull it if you want to, and that did help. I mean, it's not infallible, so you do have to take great care and keep your head back, but it did give you a little bit more, you know, leeway, so you can have a shower easier.
That's great.
And of course, a good old stick, which was my mother's stick, which I always keep, and I have it with a nice rigid bottom, so it doesn't go slipping in the ice.
Yes, that's good.
You can get new ones if yours is flat. And that, I mean, I rarely use it now, but after the operation, it was just knowing it's there, and I can go out and feel confident, because it takes some getting used to. I think it takes confidence, yes, after an operation. It took me a little while. I thought, I wonder if I can do that. I wonder if I can, you know, go for a walk or And you've got something like that with you, then might look like an old lady, but at least I'm safer.
Do you know, it doesn't matter what we look like, does it? You know, to start with, anything to help build that confidence and to be able to get people back out doing the things that they want to do and not feel. I've got someone interesting, you say that actually, someone in the comments has written, now where is it? I have found things like, this came from Facebook, I found things like crossing the road difficult, rough ground. I'm 46 and I'm finding that hard, trying to focus on cars coming and then the ground where I'm walking. It's very disorientating. It feels like vertigo. So it's things maybe we've taken for granted in the past that suddenly, you know, now we feel, we lose our confidence. Sometimes there's probably something I'm going to mention at this point. It seems like a suitable time. Wherever you are in your glaucoma story, sometimes we need a little bit of extra help and assistance with stuff like just getting on with our normal life. And as I said, loss of confidence can really mess with that. One of the things I would suggest is Googling for your local sight loss sector organisation. So it might be RNIB, it might be a local blind society, it might be in Scotland, I've got one called North East Sensory Services. Google it, just put in your nearest area and sight loss service. Even if you don't feel like, oh, well, I don't qualify, surely I'm not registered, I haven't got enough sight loss. If there's anything that you're losing confidence about, talk to them. Now, the reason I say to go to them is because they are the real professionals in aids and adaptations. And it's amazing how much stuff that you can access with a little bit of knowledge from them. And they're really great to help. They often have like kind of showrooms almost, you know, where you can go in and there's large button phones, there's water level monitors, there's all sorts of like amazing things. So if you say, well, actually, it's outside where I feel most at risk, there may be things that they can offer you. Some of them are free, some of them may be very, very cheap on the internet to kind of get, but they can make a difference and ensure that you can carry on doing the things that you really love. They're real professionals and they're not waiting for people, you know, to go blind before you know, people need assistance. They're there for you, even if you just feel like you need some confidence with your eye condition. So they're definitely worth looking into, I think. Someone's head here as well, talking about your shower thing. Someone's put also goggles in the shower. I've got some really big ones that cover up the full eye.
Yes.
Shower.
Good idea.
Yeah, that's an absolutely great idea. I'm just going to say that we've answered that one. So yeah, is there any other extra hints and tips you want to show us, Jan, that you found that have been really, or like, you know, equipment or things that you use, or is that the key ones that?
I find hanging things up in the shower. That's my shampoo. I hung up in one of those little washing bags that you put in the washing machine. You know, you can put your smalls in them. But that was very useful, and of course dry shampoo, which I've got, and you can I put that in my soap. Well, I used to when I'm all right now, obviously. And what else have I got here? I think those are the main. Oh yeah, no, I forgot my magnifying glasses. If you do anything that's really fine, I like drawing and painting. And these are glasses that look ridiculous, but they are, my goodness, if you see, you know, if I see my nails with these, they are just wonderful because they'll go over your ordinary glasses and it just brings everything back to life. You know, it's really helpful. And you can just buy, they're not prescription, they're just ordinary magnifying glasses that you can buy from an optician. So I've used those way before I had glaucoma, in fact.
That's wonderful. So
and that lady, the lady that was saying that she feels dizzy when she's sort of looking down to see where she's going, and then when she looks up, you know, you're looking down. And I find, for me, it's much better if you're looking down most of the time, and if you do look up, you just slowly look, and when you know you're safe, when you've got to the other side of the road, not because I would normally be looking around everywhere before my ops and things, but now I concentrate more and maybe can't see the scenery as much until you're static, until you stop, and then of course you're all right. So I think that I've learned that for me, that's helpful.
It's taken time, isn't it? And then you adapt. As you said, you adapt.
Yeah.
I've got someone here who's asked, first of all, someone who said about, I find dry eyes worse in the winter. And they use a gel type Visco tears and the more liquid base options, which are both very good. Someone's put here, so more dry stuff. And we do actually do a leaflet with at Glaucoma UK all about dry eye. So if that's something that you're suffering from a lot, go onto the Glaucoma UK website and you can either download a copy of that leaflet for free, or we can send one out to you free of charge as well. So that's absolutely fantastic. Your comments are coming in quick and fast, everyone, now today. Let's have a look what else people are saying here. Cocoon filter glasses are very good for glare. That's 2 people who've written that. Lots of different lenses to suit. If you try to find a local service, they will be able to provide a better price which has a local SARC, they're saying here, or an organisation has a local office there. But yes, they're saying those are particularly good for that person. Let me put I've put that there. And let's have a look what else has come in. Okay, I use a proper adjustable walking stick, which has a rubber bit at the bottom too. And being young feels better to use emotionally. Yeah, absolutely. I belittle it and I say, oh, don't worry about feeling, silly. But these things are important. If you're going to be living with something, and actually using it every day, you need something you feel good and comfortable with. So yeah, good on you to that person here. An adjustable walking stick with a rubber end at the bottom. Excellent. And exactly, if it gives you the confidence to carry on doing the things that you want to do, then brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic. Right, let me just have a look and see what else. There's loads of great stuff coming here. Let me just go back up to the top, see what I've missed. Okay, let's have a look. So many interesting questions that you've all been asking today. I just don't want to. Some of them are quite specific, guys. Some of them are very specific to your clinical conditions. And what I don't want to do is I can't obviously give you any clinical advice. What I would say here, if it's anything to do clinically, make sure you talk to your consultant. Another tip here is if you can't get through to your consultant, and I know how busy they are, talk to your consultant secretary. Really, really important. If you have any concerns post-surgery about, if someone put about low pressure in their eye and they're a little bit worried, phone your consultant secretary, tell them you're worried. Listen to your gut. It doesn't mean, hopefully you'll go along and everything will be absolutely fine. But if there's an issue that you're feeling worried about, don't just say, oh, I'm fine. It probably is, but there's nothing wrong with checking. And actually your consultant would prefer you to contact rather than you to just worry about it. Just going to have a look one more time and just see if there's anything coming up. Someone's talked about pain in the back of the eyes or headaches or debilitating pain since eye surgery, and that's definitely something that I'd be reporting to a consultant. Jan, do you remember having any headaches or
I don't normally have headaches, and I had them after surgery, and luckily just after the surgery I was given a sheet and it had emergency numbers. And so I phoned, and extremely nice young man, a young doctor, he said, oh yes, come in, I'll check and make sure it's all right. And everything was fine. But I hadn't been sort of warned about that, or I suppose that's why they give you the telephone number. I think it's terribly important that we make sure we've got those numbers. I still keep it just in case.
Definitely. That's a good question to ask. Your book, as you were saying, having it written in your book, if your consultant says, oh, this is the surgery we're going to be doing, is definitely ask, when you're discharged, what's the number? Who should I be contacting if I have any issues? So you have that with you. Write it down, have it somewhere you can know, so you can get to it easy. I've got someone here that's written about, is it okay to keep eye drops in the fridge? Does anyone else have any advice how to keep eye drops cool while on holiday? That's one that I can answer. This is, you can get a eye drop cool wallet that you can either get from Glaucoma UK, or you can get them on the websites, on, you know, Amazon's and various other things. What they do, they're kind of like made of like gel crystals, and you dip them in cold water and they kind of absorb all the cold water, and they'll keep your eye drops cool, I think for like 2 days plus, I think. So they're really, really good if you're traveling. So yeah, you can still take your eye drops with you, and then you can put them in a fridge by the time you get there. Take your eye drops in your hand luggage, just in case anything happens to your bags. You want to make sure you've got your medication. Whatever you do though, take your drops on holiday. Yeah, so I know we hear it sometimes, people say, well, I was only going for a long weekend, so I couldn't keep them cool. Get one of these wallets, stick them in. It says here, it's out of stock. I think Trish has written to me saying they're out of stock at the moment, but yes, keep looking online, and hopefully that would be the kind of thing that that would be useful. But yes, so still go away, but just make sure you can get them from Frio. F-R-I-O is the name of the company. So yes, you can get them there. That's absolutely wonderful. Now, guys, I'm going to have to wrap up in a minute because we've actually hit 8 o'clock. I'm just coming down the list very, very quickly. You've done such beautiful comments, everyone. This is exactly what I asked for, and you're absolutely wonderful. Let me just have a look. People may find it useful to know that iPhones and possibly other makes have a free magnifier, and it can work with the phone's light. Now, there's all sorts of adaptations that you can make on the phone as well. And if you actually go down to your local sight loss centre, they often have someone who's really good at tech. And as I said, you don't need to have a severe sight impairment to actually qualify for this. And they can give you all sorts of classes about what you can do to your phone, how you can make your computer easier to use, all those kind of tech things. So look out for it. I know RNIB do lots of stuff with tech that can really help you. Great, thank you for mentioning that one. Just quickly, as I roll down to the end, let's have a look. Could I suggest, if anyone has worries getting out and about, please contact your local vision service. Mobility training from a rehabilitation officer may be what you need to feel safe getting out and about. 100%. As I said, our wonderful sight sector does these kind of courses, mobility training, help you get back out and about. And I said, it doesn't need to be, you don't need to be, oh, well, I won't qualify, I'm, you know, I've still got some sight. You can still get help. So there's plenty of organizations that can help you. So that's a great one. Thank you so much for putting that one up. Where can I download or get a copy of the glaucoma monitoring book to take to my appointments? Now, if I'm right, and I think I am, that's available on the Glaucoma UK website. So if you go onto the Glaucoma UK website, there's a bit called downloadable resources, or leaflets, booklets. It's in there, I think, and you can get to that section and then you can have one there. Now, I'm very aware we're rolling past 8 o'clock. David, I was going to say I didn't mention any names. You've said thank you very much for all the tips, Jan. That's absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to have to close the questions. You're all so absolutely wonderful and have given me lots and lots of questions. I'm just going to put my final slide up, Jan, so that we can finish off here. I won't be a second. Let's go with this one because I've got some important information to tell you all about our final things. First of all, Jan, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for all that amazing information you've given us tonight and for sharing your story. You can see why we asked Jan to do these things, viewers, because she's so amazing and full of such wonderful advice, and you know, it's wonderful. So Jan, thank you so much.
Yes, well, thank you. I mean, I've learned things tonight. We learn from each other, don't we, really?
It's a great way of doing it, to share our... Oh, excellent. Guys, if I haven't come around to your question tonight, I'm really sorry. We're obviously always a little bit stuck for time. You can call our helpline, though, and get, as I said, no such thing as silly questions. If you've written one tonight, you've not got an answer, don't worry. Phone us 01233 6481 70 is the helpline number, and you can email as well, helpline@glaucoma.uk, and the office is open from 9:30 till 5. We've got loads of lovely talks coming up. The next two, the first one is on the 7th of February at 2 p.m. and that's with the ophthalmic pharmacy team from Moorfields. And that talk is titled How Your Pharmacy Team Can Help You with Your Eye Drops. And that's going to be a great one about all things eye drops. So if you've got eye drop related questions, these are the people that can help you there. And then on the 22nd of February at 3 p.m, we have a talk called Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Glaucoma. And that's going to be done by a consultant, Harry Jarriman, who's an ophthalmic surgeon who's also at Moorfields. This is a great one as an introductory type session. So that's a wonderful type session, and, you know, loads and loads of information there. So please feel free to sign up on our website. Just go to www.glaucoma.uk, sign up for more of our webinars and you can get on. Now, what I'm going to do, guys, if it's okay, Mel, are you happy to launch the second poll? And if you guys can now tell us if this comes up onto the screen, how much you now feel you know about living well with glaucoma. So lovely, I can see your responses coming in. This is absolutely fantastic. Just a few little bits. If you receive the focus email from us, which should have come just recently, it comes once a month, you would have seen a call for anyone who volunteers for us to complete a survey, because we're currently updating our volunteering strategy. So I think about 80 people have got back so far. It's been wonderful. But if there's anyone else out there, please fill it in and let us know about your volunteering experiences with Glaucoma UK. We're going to launch a survey at the end of this as well, which just helps us work out what we're doing right, what we could improve. I'm going to end that poll. Thank you so much. So it just leaves me to say again, thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing there so I can actually see Jan. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. Jan, thank you once again. Thank you to the backroom team at Glaucoma UK. We hope to see you all again. But for now, have a wonderful evening.